I've always said that you didn't need to spend money on fancy push blocks, and for 90% of the work in my workshop, my DIY solutions still reign king. Over the last few years though, I've put the Milescraft grabbers through the ringer, and in time they've earned their keep in my workshop. Today I'm going to tell you why I like them, and I'm even going to show you a few battle scars that they've taken for me. How's it? My name is Dylan and you're watching PlyCreations. It seems to be review season here in my workshop, and in my last episode I reviewed my bandsaw standing here next to me. Today you guys are getting a 2-for-1, and we're going to be looking at the Milescraft GrabberPLUS as well as the GrabberPRO, and I'm going to tell you why, if you do insist to depart with your well-earned cash, the options from Milescraft might just be the ticket. We're starting with the GrabberPLUS. I like the GrabberPLUS because it combines two features on my DIY push blocks into a single tool, and it does that by way of the inclusion of a heel front and back so that you can use the push block in either orientation. The heel engages the back of your workpiece as you push it through the cut. These are spring loaded, meaning that if I'm working on a larger workpiece, just by placing down pressure onto the push block, it pushes the heels into the body, and as I move the push block towards the back of my workpiece, the heel will then pop down and engage the back of my workpiece. By the way, I have a video on my channel where I show you how to make these DIY push blocks. You can go and check that out if you like. Because they are spring loaded, I can also lock them into the body of the push block to get them out of the way, and you can also lock them in the down position the same way if you like. Looking at the rubber pad at the bottom of the push block, is I've had these now for a few years. I've never cleaned them. They've gotten quite dusty and they're still as sticky as they were when I first got the push blocks, so that works well. A third feature on these that I especially appreciate is the angle at which the handles are mounted onto the body. When I'm making rib cuts, I need to stand, or anybody needs to stand slightly off to one side. You always have a risk of kickback and you want to get out of the firing line. Standing off to one side is when I place downward pressure on the push block. Because of the angle that the handle is mounted, it forces the push block towards the fence and of course the edge of your workpiece as well. Now, the reason why I appreciate this feature in particular is I've had on occasion where thin plywood got onto my blade, climbed onto the blade, swung around and hit me in the side of my body. If I had a push block like this, I might have mitigated the risk of that happening. So that is, for me, quite a useful feature. Where do I use these? Not just doing rib cuts, and I especially use them when I'm doing rib cuts that are where the rib is wider than the body of the push block. When it's narrower, I then reach for the GrabberPRO, but I use them on my router table, I use them on my bandsaw to resaw lumber, and you may notice that I've got two, and 90% of the time when I reach for these, it is when working on my jointer when processing raw lumber. If you are looking at purchasing these and you do have a jointer, I would suggest that you're looking at getting a set of two. Two things about these push blocks that I don't particularly like is the rubber padding at the bottom. I hope you can see that does tend to come loose, and I've had small pieces tear off and I've had to glue back the corners. They especially come loose on the corners. Second thing is, if that mechanism there gets full of dust, the heels do get a little bit harder to push back into the body. But apart from that, these are really great push blocks. But rather than me just tell you about them, let me show you how I use them as well. Looking at the GrabberPRO, you may immediately notice it's a somewhat more complicated beast, and that is what provides it its versatility. I don't use this on anything else really than my table saw, and it excels in thin rip cuts, small work pieces, and also angled rip cuts, and for all of those it does excel. I'm going to go through the parts and show you what each one of them does, starting with the similarities over the Plus. Starting with the heel here, that's mounted to the side, and you adjust its height using the thumb screws there. You'll notice that I've already got cuts through it, and what's nice about this one is it is sacrificial, and Milescraft offers replacements on their website for sale, so that is rather useful. On the other side of the push block, you'll see threaded holes that allows you to use the heel on the other side, so you can then use the push block in either orientation. Mine, you may notice, is mounted upside down, and that is where it stays permanently. I found that if I take it off and put it somewhere else in the workshop, it's never heard of or seen again, so it stays there ready to use, and I just keep it there upside down. The second similarity to the Plus is the way the handle is mounted, and as with the Plus, the angle of the handle is such that it pushes the push block into the side of your fence. The design here is slightly different in that this area of the push block is actually supposed to stay in contact with your fence in use, and that is what allows you to do the thin rip cuts. Coming on to the other side, you'll see there's a sort of a stability platform here, and by adjusting that up or down, let me show you, on a workpiece is provide you with extra stability when using the push block, and that's especially the case where you've got small work pieces and you don't have a lot of contact with the rubber surfaces at the bottom, and that will cause the push block to tilt. Speaking of, we go over to the sticky surfaces or the rubber surface contact surfaces at the bottom. On my right here, that one is mounted permanently, and in the box Milescraft includes another one that's even thinner, which will allow you to make even thinner rip cuts, so you can swap them out as required. The one here in the middle and the one on this side can be moved, and you do so by releasing that thumb nut and that one there, and they slots on those two bars, and you can move them back and forth or left and right as you need to ensure maximum contact and support with your workpiece. You can also swap them around in certain use cases. In my case, the one on this side, I almost permanently keep all the way up to my left, your right, and that stays in place, and I generally move the middle one as I need it. Quickly going to show you how I do a rip cut using the setup as it is. Now, to ensure that your blade doesn't cut into your pad, also to making sure you've got maximum support, is you place the push block all the way up to the fence, push it over the blade, and make sure that the blade is not going to contact any one of these components. Nice thin parallel rip cut, and as I mentioned, if you include this on the side of the push block, you can make even narrower or thinner cuts, and that works really well. So are these worth the money over, let's say, a DIY solution? Well, they work. They do the rip cuts the way I want to. They provide stability in the cut and security while using my table saw, or in the case of the Plus, my other machines. But do they do what they're supposed to do and provide you with some level of safety in use? Well, if you look at the Plus, I've nicked it there with a blade, as well as on this corner here, and on the Pro I've actually cut into the middle section there. That is effectively 3 trips to the hospital that I've been spared. So apart from being an effective tool to work in your workshop, they do provide safety and they work as advertised. Something I forgot to mention in the last section on the GrabberPRO was an area that I find a little bit annoying. And that is when you adjust these two movable supports and they need to move a relatively large distance. If you push the one end and you don't move the other end at the same time, they tend to jam and you need to wiggle them loose before they'll move. So moving the top and bottom at the same time will help alleviate that. And what is the final verdict? It's a solution provided by Milescraft, better than my own DIY options. When it comes to usability and safety, probably not. When it comes to cost, the DIY solution wins. However, when you are looking at versatility, especially if you're looking at the Pro or the purchased solution or the Milescraft solution comes out on top. If this video has helped you save a bit of money or helped you decide to upgrade your safety equipment, please consider dropping a super thanks. That will help me provide you with more long-term reviews. It will also help me to replenish my stock of thin plywood. Each one of these represents a single take of the GrabberPRO section. So if you can help me out, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much. As we come to the end of this video, I'd like to remind you, whatever you choose, keep your push blocks close at hand. If you don't, you won't use them. And if you don't use them, you may have a trip to the emergency room. Until I see you around next time, I hope you have a good one and cheers.